to kick off the 2008 ANA Annual Growth Conference with his valedictory address, please welcome Procter & Gamble's former Global Marketing Officer, Jim Stengel.
Thank you, man. Before you leave, come out here. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to present Bob Leodice, our president of the ANA, with his very own customized Rockstar body wash, because he is our very own ANA Rockstar. And I also say, under these hot lights, Bob, for a few days, you could use this.
Thanks, Jim. Good luck.
All right, see you.
Good day.
Okay. Well, the first thing I think I'd like to do is thank my friends at Wyden Kennedy for that crazy video. Believe me, it was low budget, and we had a lot of fun doing it. And I think how it relates to growth, we'll figure out later. But sure was a lot of fun doing it. I want to talk to you today. This is my last time with you as a P&G employee and P&G leader on this stage. And I felt it was very appropriate, because of my belief in the ANA, that I share these lessons that I've learned over my 25 years with you today in a bit of a intimate kind of format, as intimate as you can get with 1,200 people, but I'll do my best. We will have a little bit of audience interaction. I have to warn you, so those of you in the front row, be careful as we go through this presentation. But I also want to tell you that I want to give a few caveats before jumping into to a very simple presentation. And the first one is that this presentation of my learning over 25 years is all about growth. A little story. I joined Procter & Gamble in 1983 as a brand assistant. We were about $11 billion in sales then. We had 0 billion-dollar brands. And here we are at $83.5 billion in sales, 24 billion-dollar brands, and 20 brands between $500 million and $1 billion. So a remarkable growth story and a steady, consistent, sustainable growth story. So the lessons I've learned in my career since joining in 1983 with a dark blue suit and a big fat red tie and big hair was that it's all about growth in terms of what this company stands for. And these are the lessons I'll share with you. The other caveat before I jump into this is these lessons are extremely simple. And I think we have a tendency as an industry to overcomplicate things. So I'm going to give you a warning and a caveat. You may look at these and say, duh. But I want to tell you, in my experience, the simpler, the better, the simpler, the more profound. And the last caveat before jumping into this is that Bob called this a valedictorian kind of address. I would rather think of it as a commencement address, looking back on my 25 years of learning, but also as a springboard for the future in terms of what I believe in very passionately and what I'd like to do with the next chapter in my life. So, 5 lessons learned in marketing, branding, and life. And why 5? I mean, it's a nice number. Happens to be my favorite number in a personal story. Bob Greenberg actually will know this. We share the same birthday. We were both born on May 5th, but the twist on mine is I was born on 5/5/5/5. So I've always loved the number, so it was a nice way to kind of pull it together in a simple, kind of personal way. It's also these lessons in marketing, branding, and life, because actually they're all together. And I've learned a lot over the 25 years about bringing life lessons to marketing and vice versa. Too often we separate our business life and personal life. And conceptually, I think that's wrong. I think obviously we have to do it for work-life balance. But there's so much that we learn in both sides of the life that I think make us better leaders, better people, and result in better brands. Okay, those are all the caveats. Let's move to lesson number 1. And it's the biggest lesson I'm going to share with you, and it's the most important. And that is to put people at the center of all we do. And I want to share 2 stories about people to illustrate that. The first story is a meeting I was in a few years ago, a management meeting with Procter & Gamble and many of our partners. And Terry Leahy, the CEO of Tesco, was at that meeting. And I asked Terry, what can P&G learn from Tesco, a wonderful, world-leading retailer dedicated to service? And I'll never forget what Terry said to me, a very simple answer. He said, treat your people the way you would want your customers treated. And I think it's so spot on. The second story I would share with you actually is from it's a P&G leader a guy named R.R. Dupree, who was leading our company after World War II. And he has a famous quote that's shared over and over again in our company. And he once said in a speech internally that if you took away our brands, you took away our manufacturing facilities, you took away all of our offices, but you left our people, we would build it all back within 10 years. And the reason this is so fundamental is that brands are people. We too often forget that. A brand is nothing more than the intent of the people behind it taken into action. A brand is the collective intent of the people behind it. So if we don't have talented, energized, motivated, inspired people behind the brand will not succeed. This is the most important thing I will share today. We have data within P&G that consumers can actually tell subconsciously if the team behind a brand is inspired or depressed. Honestly, they can see it in our actions. So there's nothing more important than equating our brand with our people and ensuring that the people behind the brand are truly inspired. The last comment about people I want to share with you today is that I have learned in my career that the most important legacy I will have, and I think all of you will have, is the impact you have on the people that you work with. It is the most important legacy. We all have rough months, rough years, especially now, and those all, believe it or not, sort of blend together as we go through our career. But what you will remember is the relationships and the people and what you did together. I can think of countless mentors of mine throughout my history that have had a really profound impact on me at P&G. I remember going to visit John Pepper, one of our past CEO and chairman, when I was only 6 or 7 years in the company, and he took time to counsel me, to mentor me, to work with me in my career and my business issues. And I've had countless other leaders who've taken the time to do that. And I've tried to also model that in my career. I've sometimes been told by people, hey, Jim, you're too accessible. People can see you too easily. Actually, that's the point. You want to be accessible as a leader. You want to be seen, and you want to be interacting. That's what it's about. So I would ask all of you today, in terms of what I've learned, to think about this in your own life. Are you putting that first? Are you taking the time to be a mentor to the people that are most important for you and your business? And then before I leave this slide on people, I also want to reflect on, I announced my retirement 3 months ago, stepped out of the role 3 months ago, and I've been doing some transition special projects. And I received so many wonderful notes from so many of you in this room, P&G colleagues, agency colleagues, customers. And it's been totally heartwarming to read those over the past several months. But there was none more heartwarming than the one that actually was posted on a blog in Ad Age by Rochelle Newman Carrasco, who I know is here because I saw her last night, and I hope she's out of bed early enough to be in the room with us. But she took it on herself to sort of put a thought out there about a meeting we had 20 years ago. And it was a tough meeting where the client, me, and the agency were not having the best experience. And Rochelle reflected about what happened in that meeting, the impact that I had on her, and what happened after that meeting to make us stronger and make the business better. And I want to thank Rochelle for putting that out there, but I'm only sharing it not to pat myself on the back or anything like that, but to just say this was a small meeting in both of our lives 20 years ago where we had an impact on each other. And that's what we're going through day in and day out, and we should never, ever, ever forget that. People are number one. People are brands. Results happen when our people are really, really inspired. So I guess I could stop there, but I'll share a few more lessons with you as well, but that to me is really the most powerful one. Lesson number 2, engage your heart and your mind in everything you do. Heart and mind, we need balance. Too often, as an industry, and actually our schooling, we approach things with our head and not our heart, and it's about both. We often talk within P&G about a personal relationship being a metaphor for great marketing. It sounds maybe a little odd, and a lot of people throw out that word relationship marketing. But how many of us internalize that and actually apply what works for us in a really rich personal relationship to how we approach our consumers or our customers. And I don't care if you're B2B, B2C, or whatever your business model is. This is really profound. And I want to do a little bit of audience interplay here. I know it's a big group, but I'll pick on the people up front. But I want someone to shout out, Joanna, you can start this, what one characteristic of a great personal relationship is with a partner, a spouse, a child, a parent. Trust. Anyone else? Respect. Fun, 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 trust, respect. Anything else? Great personal relationships? Honesty, passion. My wife's in the third row. She's shaking her head. Integrity. Those are all great. Generosity, wit, humor, spontaneity, love. And I would just offer to you, if we thought about everything we did in packaging, in in-store presence, in advertising, in customer presentations, if they all tried to emanate from this idea of a great relationship, I would suggest we would do things differently. And we would measure things differently. And I was thinking about some of the brands last night that won the CMO awards. Think about those brands and how they approach their branding and their marketing. Do they bring these characteristics of personal relationships to life? Think about Apple. If any of you out there are Mac users versus PC, what happens when you go into an Apple store? You can visit the Genius Bar for help. You can have one-on-one lessons. You can go online for wonderful support. Okay, they really reach out with a sense of service and generosity. Zappos was talked about last night. Nike was talked about. I'd offer Amazon. There's recently been some stories written about them, I think, in the New York Times, about their steady growth. They sell secondhand books. They offer book reviews. They offer service, advice, spontaneity. Think about Southwest Airlines, a terrific brand. That industry is going through some tough times, but a brand just committed throughout their entire organization to service, to friendliness, and to wit and humor. This all sounds wonderful and may sound a little soft, engaging the heart and the mind, especially the heart. But I can tell you, at least within P&G, we have 140 brands in 300 countries. We do an awful lot of equity analysis. We really do try to understand what drives market share in each one of our brands. And ladies and gentlemen, what we find on our strongest brands is they typically have strength and competitive advantage in the emotional areas that drive the brand. And when we have that, we typically see market share levels much, much higher than our competition. So it is good marketing, it is good branding, it is good business. And so this is lesson number 2, engage your heart and your mind and bring it to your work. You will be richly rewarded by your consumers and by your organization. Lesson number 3, the wonderful Tide bottle. This is about results. At P&G, we've had a good legacy over decades and decades of linking our marketing activity to results in our brand. I do find in our industry, we tend to make things a bit complicated. We tend to focus a lot on activities that are not directly related to the kinds of things that drive our brand. And I think about some of the things that are widely written about and publicized in our industry. CMO tenures, which Bob referred to. Look at our organizational designs across companies. They're kind of all over the place. I wonder, why is that? I look at spending trends. Too much of our spending goes against things that are short-term and tactical and do not build long-term loyalty and relationships with our consumers. Why do some CEOs not value marketing? Why do some CFOs not value marketing? And I maintain it's because too often we focus on a bustle of activities and not on the few things that drive results on our brand. And I also maintain, sales are critically important, but if you only look at sales and you don't look at measures of brand health, you're also short-sighted. We have a wonderful discipline at P&G, which I've learned from over the last 25 years, of kind of having annual discussions, formal reviews of our people. We obviously do it, more than once a year, but once a year we do it in a really formal way. And we actually discuss our people's development in 3 areas. One is, how is the business doing? Sales, profit, all the key measures of financial performance. We then look at how the brand is doing. Is the brand equity stronger? Are the various elements of brand health moving in the right direction? And then we look at their results with their people. And our people do not advance at P&G unless they're showing performance in business, brand, and people. It's about that combination. If one of those gets out of balance, we get into trouble. So I just offer it to you, as you lead your organization, is everything you do, is your activity system around results, and is it balanced on brands, business, and people? I maintain as an industry, we're not where we need to be there. Lesson number 3, creativity. There is no great brand building organization that is not a creative organization. Creativity is about solving problems. It's about meeting challenges. And I offer to you today that we typically, if you're on a client side, you're an advertiser, we tend to be a bit more left-brained. Okay, we're a little bit off balance that way. Agencies are typically more right-brained. So when you put a great client and a great agency together, or set of agencies, magic can happen. You become more whole-brained. We too often have the wrong discussions with agencies. Okay? We talk about compensation, we talk about fees, we talk about lots and lots of short-term stuff. We don't talk about how we can come together to be a powerful force for moving the brand ahead. A few quick stories, very quick. When I started this job 7 years ago, I got all of our major agency heads across different types of agencies, ad agencies, media agencies, public relations, et cetera, et cetera. And these are all competitors. We got them in the room, and we said, how are we going to work together to lift P&G's performance and our capabilities? And what happened is a series of those meetings over the course of the last 7 years. And most recently, with the creative heads of our different agencies, about how we lift our creative performance that results in better business. And we would not have gotten this wonderful acknowledgement this past summer in Cannes as Advertiser of the Year without this special partnership we've had with agencies over many years, because we appreciate them for what they are: highly creative, highly talented, somewhat right-brained organizations. When put together with us, with the right chemistry, the right goals, the right culture, breakthrough can happen. So my lesson is, we too often have the wrong discussions with agencies. When you have the right ones, magic can happen. And I want to share, there's a wonderful book that Daniel Pink wrote a few years ago called A Whole New Mind. I highly recommend it. And I want to share with you today a quote from that book about being whole-brained and the importance of that. And I'll read this directly, so bear with me. This is from Daniel's book. Today, he says, the defining skills of the previous era, the left-brain capabilities that powered the information age, are necessary but no longer sufficient. And the capabilities we once disdained or thought frivolous, the right-brain qualities of inventiveness, empathy, joyfulness, and meaning, increasingly will determine who flourishes and who flounders. For individuals, families, and organizations, professional success and personal fulfillment now require a whole new mind. I think he gets it, and I think we could learn a lot from applying that. Lesson number 5, and my last one, and this is to have a purpose, certainly a personal purpose, but what I'm going to talk about today is a purpose behind your brand. I feel so strongly about this that I'm devoting the next chapter of my life to this mission. And why do I feel so strongly about it? Because it changes everything, including your results. I maintain it's the only way forward to grow brands sustainably. Now, what do I mean by this? It's kind of a big word. It's used a lot. I'll start with what it's not. Purpose-based or ideals-based branding, marketing, is not cause marketing. It too often gets shortchanged as cause marketing. Cause marketing is wonderful. It works on many brands when it's strategic. It can be an output of being purpose-based, but it's not the same thing. It's not synonymous with it. What purpose-based branding is is having an inspirational, motivational reason for being for your brand and having all activity emanate from that. Let me say that again. An inspirational, motivational reason for being for your brand and having all activity emanate from that. It's a brand that understands where it comes from. It answers the question, why am I here? It's a brand that shares values with its consumers. It's a brand that has an agenda. It's a brand that's trying to make a powerful impact for good in service of its purpose and its consumers. Now I'm going to throw a few brands out there and see if there's anyone in the audience who might tell me what they think their purpose is. Actually, the brands that won awards last night, I would maintain that they're all purpose-based, and their activity system and their marketing comes from that. But one that's talked about, Nike. Anyone? Too heavy a question for early in the morning? Build self-esteem. I think that's good. I don't know. I'm not inside the company. We're going to hear from Nike, I think, tomorrow. But I would say I think they're trying to be the inspiration for athletes around the world and bring them innovation, better performance, and better self-esteem. I think that's their purpose. And I think that's why they've maintained such a wonderful growth rate for over 20 years. A brand that I think is a wonderful brand, it's Pepperidge Farm Goldfish. And I think they do a marvelous job of bringing optimism to children. I think that's their purpose. Again, I'm not in the company, this is what I read from it. Certainly Apple's purpose is reasonably clear. Zappos, Southwest, Amazon, I've talked about them already. You know, the brand that we had fun with early in the presentation, Old Spice. Old Spice, since unleashing and discovering their purpose, has achieved much better business results. And they're just simply trying to help young guys navigate the seas of manhood. That's their purpose. And they're doing it pretty well. And it's a wonderful purpose. So, a few other thoughts before I leave this concept of purpose and why I believe so strongly in it. What I've learned in my 25 years is I have observed teams within P&G where something different was going on. And whenever I found that, the team was working to some sort of higher ideal. Different things were bringing them to work every day that were very, very meaningful to them and their consumers. A purpose has to be authentic first to the employees of the brand or of the company. So I've been, Pampers, Always, Tide, Safeguard, I can go on and on. Many, many, many P&G brands are showing, terrific growth results, are very, very purpose-driven. I've been inspired by many outside companies, many of you in this room represent them, to show us the way about what it means to understand what you're about and having everything emanate from that. And certainly the young people who are joining our companies, P&G included, are bringing a sense of they want to make a difference, they want to make a purpose. I've been inspired by so many of them as they enter the workforce with kind of a different attitude about working in a business to make life better, because that's what it's all about. And I've been inspired by studies we fielded, which typically can go back to those brands inside and outside the company that seem to outpace their category, have something different going on in terms of their ideals that they aspire to. So those are the simple 5 lessons I wanted to share with you this morning, and it really is that simple. People, embrace your heart and mind, creativity, results, having a sense of purpose. I think if we woke up every morning, we acted against those on our brands and our people, we'd have far better trust with our consumers and devotion and affection, and we'd be a better discipline for it. And that's a good transition to have a few thoughts I want to share with you before I leave the stage as the last time as a P&G employee. A lot of you have been asking me what's going on, what am I doing next, and it's been great to chat about that, but I just want to spend a second on that, and it will be no mystery to you, but my mission as I leave the company is to form a small new venture that's called Jim Stengel. It's my own LLC. Clever name. It's ownable anyway. And my mission is to be a catalyst and change agent globally to try to lift marketing to a much higher level of purpose and performance. It's that simple. And I want to do this through a series of initiatives. I want to write about it, and I'm working on several articles in a book. The book is called Packaged Good, by the way. And it's going to be about bringing these principles and this framework to life and to build a business case for it and to help all of us kind of act against it. I want to do some speaking, as I'm doing today, about this topic and my passion for it and to continue to prove the business case. I want to do some consulting on this as well. And I also want to get involved with young people and do some teaching across many, many different universities, but I will most likely become an adjunct faculty at a leading university and most probably one on the West Coast. So that's what I want to do with the next phase of my life. A lot of you have been asking. There will be more coming on this, but I just wanted to share that very briefly with you this morning. And I wanted to end with a few thank yous to so many people who are here today who have been so important to me and for the time we've shared together. I want to first thank the P&G people who are in the room and outside the room for their inspiration for the last 25 years. We have Vivian Bechtold, who is here, who's been a great partner. Edgar Sandoval, who's out there somewhere. I know he was at the board meeting yesterday. Tammy Jones, Dina Howell, terrific colleagues, I thank you, and so many, many others for the relationships we've had. I want to thank my mentors, A.G. Lafley, John Pepper, Bob McDonald, Susan Arnold, and on and on and on. John Smale, who I still talk to, is in his 80s. He was the CEO of the company when I joined. They just have been terrific. But there are so many others. It's a great company, great relationships, and those are the things I remember most. I want to single out this morning and thank my successor, Mark Pritchard, who's also out there somewhere. Mark is joining us today. Yesterday, I made some introductions. We've been doing that over the past couple months. Mark has jumped into this job with terrific energy, innovation, commitment, a real vigor to take what we've done over the last 7 years and take it up a level and move P&G further and further to being a better and better brand building organization. So I can't thank him enough for what he's doing, what he's done, and what he will do to build on the legacy that we've established at P&G. So thank you, Mark. I want to thank the ANA and its board, starting with Bob, and the vice chairs and chairs I've served with, going back to Jim Spiros when I became vice chair, Becky Sager, Steve Sullivan. Terrific organization. Look at this, terrific people. I'm so proud of what's happened here, and the board, and especially the leadership of the board, deserves a tremendous amount of credit, and I thank them very, very deeply. And finally, I want to thank a few people in the audience, and I could go on and on about this, but I just want to draw out a few that I know are here. Andrew Robertson, who's speaking later this afternoon, the leader of BBDO. The Gillette and P&G marriage, acquisition, integration, whatever you want to call it, has been one of the best in our industry ever. And this would not have happened without everyone working together toward the same set of goals, and I thank Andrew very, very deeply for that, for leading BBDO. Bob Greenberg, who I know is speaking with Nike later today or tomorrow. Bob has been a great mentor of mine. He's been a great thought leader. I've gotten so much nourishment from his ideas, and I really thank him, and I urge him to keep it up. I want to thank Tim Armstrong, who heads up the Google commercial operation. For many years, they've helped us accelerate our efforts into the digital age, and that has helped us so, so deeply in ways that I can't even describe. So thank you, Tim, and your entire team. And I want to thank Roy Spence, who I think is here today, who's been a partner with me on purpose. I've had a relationship with Roy going back several years. He's coming out with a book on purpose, which I read. It's wonderful. You should buy it. It's going to be out there in the next couple of months. And he and I are working on putting together some sort of institute about brand purpose, which I think is going to be really, really exciting. So these are the people that have been just wonderful, and I could go on and on, but I thank all of you for the inspiration you provided me and P&G and my colleagues. And then last, I want to thank my wife, who is here today. We're 25 years married this summer, and she has been this CMO's best friend and partner. So thank you, Kathleen. So I'm going to close out. I often get asked which are the best examples of P&G brands that bring this purpose thing to life. And I want to share with you in a moment a video montage to close out the presentation on brands within the P&G family that I think bring purpose to life. And it's a visual thing, so you just have to get a feeling from it. So I want to end with that. But before I do that, in my last words with you as a P&G employee, this is my last speech publicly as a P&G employee, I just want to ask you if you've been inspired at all by these lessons, if you've been at all motivated by some of the things I've talked about, I just ask you to make a personal commitment to try to bring some of this to life within your organization. I think we can be so much better as an industry. We have so much talent. We spend so much money. And if we could just lift this up to a higher level together, to me, the power is in a million movements not just 1, 2, 3, or 10. So if anything in here inspired you, I'd love to talk more about it, but more importantly, take this back, make some personal commitments, and if we work together, I think we can be so much better as an industry, serving our consumers and customers and building the trust levels and the devotion levels in our brands to much higher levels. So please, let's start a million movements together. I urge you to do it if this at all has been inspirational to you. And I will end with a video about P&G brands that I think bring purpose to life in different ways in different countries. Let's look at it.
Clean, free, public bathrooms. Hey, you gotta know, why not go in style?
Party in the bathroom. I got a new main squeeze. Charlie.
Thank you, everyone. Good luck. I'm not done?
No, you're not done. We've got more to do. We've got some Q&As here.
All right, Bob.
To the audience, if you have questions, please bring it to the ANA staff, and we'll route the question up as fast as we can. First of all, a very inspiring speech. We truly appreciate those insights to download for how we should be operating in this marketplace, and it certainly is a very different perspective. One of the things that you said that was very, very unique was putting people at first. We often don't think that. In fact, when we think about skill building and the kinds of qualities necessary to be able to grow our businesses, we often forget about the people side. Tell us what we must do, what kinds of activities we need to engage in to make a very demonstrable push towards putting people first.
Well, I think we can start by talking about it more, which we've begun today. I think that's raised the awareness of it. I think, at least my learning at P&G, which I alluded to, is we have we made it a habit, okay? Behavior change happens with habits, and I think actually Andrew is going to talk about that later today in terms of rituals. We've made people development, people management, recruiting, training, development a ritual at P&G. We have training, we put a lot of time into recruiting, an awful lot of time in development, matching people with their passion, with their careers. And I think, unless you're doing that, you're not going to attract the talent you need for the future. And you're going to be mortgaging your future. So to me, I think let's raise the awareness and let's, within our companies, build a system so that we can get into the habit of doing this and valuing it.
One of the first lessons I learned when I made my career switch from finance to marketing was marketing is nothing more than common sense. I'm not sure that's too far away from simple is better. Mm-hmm. But as you think about those kinds of concepts, how should we be considering simplicity in our respective brand building efforts? Are there some good demonstrations inside P&G where simple did become better and drive growth?
Oh, I think all of our great brands have a simple purpose, a simple reason for being, simple equities. I think, unless you can clarify very, very succinctly what your brand stands for and how it's different in the marketplace, kind of everything else is a waste of time. So I think it's about, Kevin Keller at Dartmouth talks a lot about points of parity and points of difference, which I think is a wonderful way to think about your brand. But I think it starts with what's your simple statement about why you're here, and then how are you different, and how is this helpful to the consumers you're trying to delight? If you can't answer those simple questions, and this is kind of a hallmark of P&G, we start with those questions. And if we can't get past those, we don't go.
Right. Good. You talked about emotion and engaging your heart and your mind. How do you build emotion into the brand? That's a tough thing to do. We're used to dealing in facts and hard data and basic activities day to day. What are the kinds of lessons you can teach us about building emotion?
A simple one, and A.G. Lafley's been a great mentor on this. He's written about it. When he came into the job in 2000, one of the first things he said is we're going to get out and we're going to start being with our consumers more. So what happened is sort of this, we've always been a consumer-oriented company, but what happened is we got out away from we do a lot of data analysis, as we all do, but we got out of our offices and we went into homes, we shopped with consumers, sometimes we went out in low-income villages and lived with consumers for several days to understand their habits and practices, thoughts and feelings. So to me, the biggest thing you can do to get in touch with the emotional side is get out there with the people that are important for you and be part of their life. Things will come to you. We found it over and over again, whatever country we're in. So get out there and get in touch with the people that are important for your brand.
We're in tough economic times right now. There's a lot of uncertainty. Things are quite disruptive. How should marketers act, or what should marketers do in these tough times? And kind of a related question, are you concerned about the growth of private label brands as a way to be able to get your way through this tough economy?
In these times, I think more than ever, the kinds of lessons I talked about are even more important. Because if you're really, really in touch with your consumers and you're representing, you're of service to them, you're focused on, at these times people are looking for the right value. And if we're offering, the right value and we're building on the relationship we have and we're there for consumers when they need us, I think we'll get through it. P&G has had many, many tough times in many countries on economic slowdowns, whether it be Russia, Argentina, this country many years ago. If you focus on the right stuff, you get through it. There's actually a lot of opportunities in times like this.
Good. One of the great lessons that you imparted to us as a director on our board was the focus on leadership. Leadership, it manifests itself in so many different ways and helps create a great company like P&G. How do you promote that inside a company? How do you develop leaders? We talked about people growing, nurturing, building skills, and becoming leaders. What are some of your insights that you could pass on to us about developing leaders?
We look for leaders when we hire people out of universities. We're looking for people who have somehow, in some way, and we actually don't care where, have had an impact, have changed something for the better. And this is what leaders do. They see something that is important and they work against changing it. So we try to hire people who have a demonstrated history of that, and then it's the first thing we reward. People don't move forward within the marketing discipline at P&G without demonstrating leadership characteristics and abilities. And we don't let them out there on their own. We coach it, we train it, we bring in lots of outside people to help us with that. But at the end of the day, if you're not, if you're not looking to change things for the better, and sometimes that means not changing something, we're not attracting the kind of people we need.
Gotcha. We have a question from the audience.
Hello? Hi, good morning. My name is Adam Jacobson, and I'm the editor of CMO Essentials with Hispanic Market Weekly. The efforts in the U.S. Hispanic market by Procter & Gamble are practically second to none. You've done a tremendous job. And I would think that there's some CMOs in the room that are anxious or not even in the Hispanic market yet because they don't really know what to do. Do you have one or two learning lessons about how your company has been able to tackle those issues?
Well, I think we just talked about leadership. Many, many years ago, back when I started with the company 25 years ago, we were talking about Hispanic marketing and what's happening long-term demographically, and are we prepared for that? So we started to put into place, first of all, consumer understanding. Get out there and understand what's important, how can we be relevant with our family of brands. So it begins with looking at trends, getting ahead of them, getting out there with consumers to understand what we can do, and then we put into place capabilities, measurement systems, agencies, to help us understand it and move forward on the opportunity. But I mean, you'd sort of have your head in the sand, at least in this country, if you're not looking at the demographic trends and questioning how you as a company or a brand can be relevant with the consumers of America going forward. You need to be in Hispanic marketing. I hope that helps.
All right, thank you.
Jim, give us your sense as to the state of the agency community, what you like, what you don't like.
Well, I alluded to in my presentation, what I don't like is I think a lot of our conversations as clients and agencies are not focused right. What I do like is I think these are wonderfully diverse and talented organizations that they're ask a lot of them. Ask them the tough questions, enlist them in your problems, and also put a team together of the kinds of people from the kinds of agencies that are right for your brand. And I think when that happens and you truly are a partner, we use that word a lot, I don't think we act on it as much as we could as an industry, I think magic can happen.
Interesting question. In the age of marketing accountability, we're always focused in on measurements. Can you measure fulfillment or purpose?
Oh, absolutely.
And how?
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of it is understanding. First of all, you have to articulate and make explicit what your purpose is. And until you do that, you can't act on it, and then you also can't measure it. But once you are explicit about what you're trying to do, and what's important is you find your purpose, but then it's how it comes to life. What are the actions you take? Then that can be measured very, very well, and you will see it in your equity. You will see it in your share. It's actually very measurable.
Final question. This is the age of the elections, this time of the year. No, we're not going to ask you who you prefer.
Did anyone watch David Letterman last night? It was good. It was really funny. I'm trying to deflect this.
I know. Yeah. You've had a mountain of lessons learned at P&G. Talk to us about the state of political advertising and what you would suggest for that arena.
Oh my. Well, I can only say what we found in P&G is more often than not negative advertising erodes a brand and is the wrong way to go. So you will see very little. We'll do comparative advertising when we think we have something to say, but we will not denigrate a competitor and we will not get negative. And we think that's the way to long-term trust and long-term brand growth.
Gotcha. Well, Jim, at the conclusion of your remarks, you said a lot of thank yous and goodbyes to people here in the audience. We can't thank you enough for the leadership that you've demonstrated, not only for the ANA, but for the entire marketing community. So before you go, we just have a very, very small token of our appreciation to thank you for everything that you've done for us.
Rockstar Cologne?
Ladies and gentlemen, Jim Stengel.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.